Hey, Ron, welcome to the show. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. But first of all, again, thanks for the opportunity to share my story. So background on me right now, I'm a sales director for a large information services provider. And I manage a team. Well, I manage 11 reps right now, Canada and 7 US based reps. Um, an inside sales team, but it's all hunting. It's hunting and some farming. And been doing this since 96. Broke in pharma sales, a little bit older, right? Back in the 90s, which was learned a lot, met some great people, and worked my way into specialty sales and then device sales, and now doing and wanted to really be in IT sales. So been in the game for a long time.
Yeah, cool. And why did you decide to get into management or leadership?
Yeah, so great question. Because I think really tying to your themes, I feel like sales to some degree is becoming a lost art. People are trying to put a process around it, right? I love that giggle. That's awesome. So, and I just felt like somebody needed to, kind of keep everybody grounded on what sales is. And it's about conversations, right? Solving people's problems. It cannot be assembly lined together. All these initiatives around data gathering and things like that. I buy into that a lot. I tell my reps all the time, data is huge. It tells us what's working, but it's not a means to an end, right? It's just a measurement of what we're doing. So yeah, it's been a fun ride because it's not something I'm used to, but I've always coached to some degree, whether it's sports, so it's something I enjoy. I love bringing teams together, love creating culture, love empowering people, watching people grow, helping people develop. So it's a great role. I never thought I'd want to do it. In fact, I never thought I wanted to do sales, to be quite honest with you. But I really have enjoyed the ride.
Yeah. Was there a catalyst? Was it just like you got pulled into it, or was there an opportunity, or was it you get to a point in your life where you're like, maybe I should do something different, but not that different?
Right. You mean moving into management?
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, I love this question because it gives me a chance to shout out to a guy I admire. Mike Stang was my VP at the time, and I was an individual contributor role. And I didn't think I was ready. I was fairly new to the company, and it's health information services. And but I came from a pharma and device background, so I had a real good sense for the value props in healthcare for this particular solution. So I think I kind of came in, knew what I was doing. Both feet were on the ground, and I have I'm an energetic guy, high energy. I just think, so for whatever reason, he liked that. Well, anyway, when the role posted became open, I felt like, there are people here who've been a lot longer than I have, and they really should be considered for this role. But he stopped by my cube one day. He said, "Ron, I noticed you haven't posted for this role." And I said, "Well, Mike, it's not that I don't aspire to be at that level someday. I just don't know that I'm ready." He said, "Well, I think you're ready." So that was it. That was a catalyst. I probably would have sat there on my hands and waited my next turn. And I thanked him actually just in the last 2 weeks. I don't know that I would have gotten my shot if I didn't have that one moment,
And what was that first year like? Because it's a very different role.
Yes, you learn so much, right? So I think, it's hard to say because I could. My first answer is this. On my first day of being a director, I had 2 brand new reps to the company that I had nothing to do with their hiring process, right?
Yeah.
So I'm meeting them for the first time on the first day. But Brian, I'm kind of glad, that I am at where I am in my career because I was confident enough to just go up to them and say, "Hey, listen, I haven't done this before, but I'm going to give another shout out. I had a great manager. His name was Jim Harper. I worked for him at 2 different companies, and I said he was the best manager I've ever worked for outside, prior to this, where I had developed some ideas on how I would manage if I ever got into the role. And I said, so The thing Jim did for me is Jim was just a great coach. He was a great Sherpa. He always had great advice, never sat in judgment, really try to eliminate distractions. He said, that's what I want to be for you guys. I want to be a coach. I'm not here to manage things. I'm here to help you guys improve your game, right? And that's it. And that's all we're going to do. And I had also inherited a couple reps, but, so with Jess and Nick, the two reps that started the same day I took this role, we got off to a great start because they were new to this. Jess was new to sales altogether, and Nick was an experienced, high-performing rep, right? So what I learned then is you can't coach everybody the same, right? I forget what the phrase is for it, but you got to meet everybody where they are, which is a lot, right? Which is kind of our sales approach as well. You got to meet your customers where they are. I love that nod. Yes, right. It's almost spiritual when you think about it, right?
But because everybody else does the opposite. They want them to meet you where you are.
Exactly right. Right. Hey, I got this great product. Why don't you want it? What's wrong with you? Why don't you understand? Right. So yeah. So yeah, Jess was new to sales and she was very motivated. And you know, Brian, you've been doing this long enough. It's like Tom Brady, Bill Belichick. One almost cannot exist without the other. You have to have that marriage. Yeah. It's not a great rep makes a manager great. It's not a great director that makes a rep great. You got to have the want. I'll show you the how, right? But Nick was totally different. Nick was like, because I used to check in with them all the time because I was new to this. I'm not going to say insecure, but I wanted to make sure I was meeting their needs. And Nick was, I don't want to say I was hands off, but Nick let me know when he needed some help within this situation, right? So he'd come to me. And I used to say to him, Nick, are you okay? Like, I feel like I'm not giving you the love you need. So Ron, you're managing me perfectly. I get what I need when I need it, but you give me the autonomy I need to go do what I do. And he killed it, just killed it. They both killed it. And so that was a nice little story. On the other side, I inherited a couple reps, right? And not that there were issues there, but it's interesting what happens when you bring, I'll say baggage, and I don't mean the connotation that it provides, but there was some history there, some unmet expectations or unrealistic expectations, and we had to manage through that. And going back to the whole brutal truth thing here, I remember with one of those reps, we were in a one-to-one, and there was a lot of contention because I ask a lot of questions. And at one point, the rep said, "What's up with the interrogation?" And I right then I said, I stopped. I turned the monitor away. I said, "This is no longer about now. It's about you and me, because we have to have this." And it really our whole relationship pivoted from there. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but. So that's a great way to encapsulate what I learned, because everybody is in their own place. It's our job to meet them where they are, right? Yeah. So sorry for the long-winded story.
Well, I mean, that is a great point, because a lot of managers say, okay, this is how I run it. You adhere or you leave.
Right. Well, you're a sports guy. Yeah, you're a sports guy. You got to pick players for the system, or you got to design the system for the players. Right. So you can't be, I'm just going to pick whatever especially for us as directors, right? You inherit teams, you blend people into your team. You can't homogenize it. Again, just like you cannot homogenize the sales process, right? Like you got to meet those customers where they are. You got to really draw them into the conversation, right?
That's it. It's not like the military where they graduate high school on Friday and on Monday they're on the bus to boot camp. They're coming from all different stages of life.
Right, exactly right. Exactly right. Right. Some have families, right? Some don't, right? You got to meet all these people where they are. There's just no way to assembly line that, right?
And what do you see distinguishes you as a leader from, I'm sure you've seen goods and bads.
Yeah. So again, this is why I'm so happy to talk to you. I think it's the honesty. I showed you this before, but I'll do it again, right? It's the honesty, right? This was attributed, great players want to be told the truth. And we do that. And I demand the truth from my reps, and I give them the truth. And I think that's what distinguishes me. And without, at the risk of, I'm not one of these guys who wants to talk about himself. In fact, I think that's why I got so good asking a lot of questions because I never want to talk about myself. But thank you for the opportunity. What I wanted to say in this regard is you can't just be all truth, right? It's got to, those reps have got to know that I'm going to say love around that you actually have a personal interest in their well-being, right? Right. You know what I mean? And there's all sorts of ways.
It's not the truth that now go fix yourself. It's the truth.
Yes.
It's like, you're not seeing this. You want to see this.
Yeah. And I want to be that objective, disinterested observer who could help provide some objective view. And again, all this applies to our sales approach, right? We can be that to our customers, bring the objective market insights where we think, so it's all repeatable behaviors in all sorts of different areas. But yeah, I think that's the key is like they have to, it's your job to build the trust. It's not their job to trust you. It's your job to enable it, right? And then once you get there, then you have to be honest. You have to be honest with them. And they love it. It's like for those who've raised kids, you know, when the boundaries are loose, they get lost and they go do crazy things. If you just help them understand where the bumpers are, they want that. They want that. The whatever that is, right? They want to know what the universe looks like, what's allowed, what's not allowed. I could thrive here. You just manage on the edges, right? Is that making sense?
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of the great leaders have had, you know, families, because what better training every night you go home.
right, exactly right. Every night, right. And again, same thing.
There's no firing those. Right.
That's right. Somebody said this. I wish I remember. This is because I love quotes because they're just great synopsis. Somebody said you have to raise the kids you have, not the ones you wish you had. Right.
Yeah.
And again, you got to meet them where they are. Right. You know, again with sports, my son played football and baseball, and he pitched for a summer. I know you were a pitcher, and he. You know, when I was coaching him, I'd coach him the way I wanted to be coached. He wasn't there, right? We grew up in a different generation, right? And so thankfully we had other coaches who had other styles, and that worked. That worked for him. He thrived in other environments. And then he got back into an environment where it, wasn't the right sort of communication style for him. And so baseball was over, right? At least pitching was over. But so I think again, great coaches do that. When you think about the roster of a football team and how many personalities you have there, right? And then just the great coaches are the ones who know how to develop that one-to-one relationship with each one of them, not trying to manage them all the same,
And how did you handle like the real tough cases where the people there was enough talent there to keep them, but it wasn't working?
Right. Oh, that's a great one. That's a tough one, right? So I'm thinking about, I have a couple people in mind, and again, it goes back to being honest, right? And demanding that honesty. First of all, are you into this, right? And I remember, with sports in particular, right, with my son, if you're in, I'm all in, but I can't be all in and you're not, right? So you tell me what's your goal, what's your expectation, and then I'm right there next to you. And I think so with the reps, it's exactly that. If you're all in, I'm with you, but now you have to drive the bus, right? What do you need from me? What do you need from the organization? What are you struggling with? And I think you got to get you got to get in with both feet with that. You got to really partner up with them, because again, in the situations that I've been involved in, once you said this on one of your podcasts, we're emotional beings, right? Particularly in sales, right? We're just so, we're up, we're down, we're never ambivalent, right? We're never just right here, right? We're always somewhere in the extreme. And I think when it comes to struggling reps, there's that sense of insecurity. I can't do this. And we don't want to play on that, right? Right, because you're just guaranteeing the inevitable, right?
The performance plan. It's the dumbest thing that ever came up.
Yeah.
Why not just tell somebody to go look for another job?
Right. Well, that's a great point, Brian. Did you do those back?
No, if I had somebody who wasn't working out and I had communication with them, I go, look, this isn't working. Here's a bunch of headhunters. I'm not going to do anything.
Right. I got you. Yeah. So it's so funny you say it, because I think now so I don't know what companies you work for, but when you work for the large corporations, right, you do have the HR process, right? So okay, so I'm trying to be careful with my words. I don't want to offend anybody here, even though I'm all about brutal truth, right? But I think it's because we are so emotional. The PIP comes in when that person has clearly demonstrated they're not interested in helping themselves, right? So I think that's just, but to your point, basically that's, hey, we're just beginning the process of you leaving the company. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. And yeah, because I've honestly never seen anyone come out of that.
Yeah. I actually had one do it.
Did you?
I had one do it. Now, again, because we're a little bit larger, we have a process, right? And we had some performance issues, but, and I don't mind, I love, this is a good story to tell. Because in the end, Brian, you're a human being. You show up to work every day, right? You do these podcasts, but you go home, you live a life like the rest of us. We got stresses, we got problems, right? We got, we're all, everybody's dealing with COVID so much differently, and it's affecting people differently. So, but the point of bringing that up is we're human beings, and we have to remember that always. When we're emotional human beings, like you always accurately put it. And so in this case, I learned so much about this person. So because we're a large company, we had this process. We weren't meeting expectations. We weren't meeting minimal expectations. And it was one of those cases where, we've gone remote selling and some people aren't good at it, right? It's a different skill set, right? Because, I would say more organic sales guys are used to pressing the flesh and sort of being, I'll say, charming and, you know what I mean?
Well, having travel time, having, happy hour, dinner time.
Right. Just the personal social interaction. Right. So in this person's case, not only was this person especially susceptible to COVID, right, which was causing some anxiety, significant anxiety that I wasn't aware of. But the whole transition to the inside sales thing. So there was some severe anxiety here that I did not pick up on, right? And then it was breeding insecurity. And so I think you heard this, you said this once before too, is, so every feedback was becoming a personal insult in this case, right? Right. And not by any fault, I will say not of my own, because I know I've delivered successful feedback to the same very person, right? Yeah. But where that person was in that moment, I was missing it, right? I wasn't picking up on the cues. But because we had a great relationship, he finally fessed up what was really bothering him. So we kind of stepped back from all of this and said, okay, listen, let's talk about how we deal with that. We put him in touch with resources, right? Our company offers those kind of resources, and it was great. And we were able to say, okay, I did the human thing. I did the thing that I should do for you as a brother on the street, right? So now we need to talk about this too, right? So what are we going to do? And he got it. And I think it was just that connection, again, that human connection in that moment, taking that, that person feeling like, okay, Ron does really care about me, right? And got me things that I didn't realize were available to me. I owe, right? Not that I owe this, but now I could focus on this, right? So yeah, that's the one case where somebody came out of one. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think that one element of, does my manager have my back?
Right.
Meaning that on my bad day, they're not going to kick me. That I'm more than just a number. Right. And that those are the people that stand up for you, that will work the weekends, will get up 4 a.m. to go see the account, that will pull in a deal like MacGyver would. Right.
No, exactly right. Yeah, that's how you build a resilient team, right? You let them know you got their back, whatever it takes. And sometimes you have to take some arrows. Let's just say from upper echelon, you got to take some arrows. That's okay. That's worth fighting, because I need these guys have the one revenue generating role in this company, and I need them focused on that. Right. I'll take the arrows.
You want the honesty back about the deals.
Right. That's right.
Not telling you what you want to hear.
Right.
And then the last day of the quarter, slips.
Sorry, boss. Right.
You're like, no, I need to know what you think's going on there. Not to judge you.
Right.
But how do we work together to get it done?
Yeah, at the risk of mentioning brand names, I won't mention any brand names here. I'm not sure what the rules of
Doesn't
engagement
matter.
are. Okay. So we just went through Miller Hyman refresh, right? And what I love about Vince McFarlane, he's so good at this. And he says, hey, Ron, not Ron, but this is a skit, guys. I've been doing this for 30 years, right? The thing I love about the Miller Hyman process, it was built on best practices of successful salespeople. And he said, listen, we didn't create anything here, just a methodology around what you all are doing anyway, right? And again, talk about brutal truth, right? His whole point is you have to be brutally honest about where your deals are. Nobody has time to fluff, especially you, Mr. or Mrs. Sales Rep, who's got probably 20 deals in the hopper. 10 of those are probably real, but you're wasting your time on the other 10 trying to make them real, right? So yeah, I agree with you. They have to be empowered to be honest. And to your point, you as a director, if a deal is not a good deal, you have to allow them to decide that for themselves, right? And not talk them into it. Like we could coach them up on it. Like I'd be curious what you would do if you had a deal that you suspected wasn't really great. Would you tell the rep to focus on other more qualified deals, or would you find ways to better qualify the current deal that you think is no
well, my favorite question when I did a forecast review is, what do you think is going to happen next?
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Yeah.
Because there was always the classic thing: they're either below the line economically, and
right.
the economic buyer in Miller Hyman terms is somebody they either don't know or have never met or are blocked from.
Right.
And so, and I'd be like, did you give them a proposal? And of course, they gave them a proposal. Are they calling you back? No, they're not calling me back.
Right.
So what do you think is going to happen next?
Right. Well, it's almost as if exactly. I love that. It's almost as if, because I love seeing deals in the pipe that are committed, but we haven't talked to the customer in 3 weeks, right? Like, come on, guys. Right. And again, my team is good with that. Like they don't mind being called out because they lose focus, right? Because they got so many deals going on. But to your point, I love it. Talking about the PIP being basically the resignation notification. To me, the proposal is basically like you just gave the get out of jail card. They never have to talk to you again, right? That is precious. Hold that back, right? That is, again, once you deliver that proposal, you pretty much guaranteed, unless they're properly qualified before that, right? So that's the major caveat. Guaranteed you're not hearing from them.
Right, because now it's double-sided because the person on the other side thinks that they can get it done. And all they have is a list of products and prices. And their manager goes, why am I doing this? And you're giving it to someone who's never sold anything.
Right.
And what do they say? They say, oh, it's a good idea. It's like, well, I need more than that.
Right. Well, to your point, it's, are you curious or are you interested?
Right.
Like, yeah. And that's where I think, like we as an industry, and I don't know if this is company specific. Again, I just think there's this just huge shift to sort of automating all this, right? I call it assembly lining it, right? And what we're not teaching the reps and what we need to focus on teaching the reps is how to ask these questions because they're not comfortable with asking those kind of questions about the EB, right? How do you determine who the EB is? Ask, right? Who eventually, do you sign off on this or is there somebody else who has to sign off? But nobody wants to. I just don't know why there's that discomfort with that. And then again, that could be being a little longer in my career than some of the people who I'm working with. I don't know. But I think systemically, we're not coaching to those conversations. We're coaching to process. We're not coaching the conversations, right? Do you agree? You see it because you're consulting, right?
Well, that's it, because all of that process and automation comes out of companies, what they call in the tornado. The people from Crossing the Chasm. He wrote a book called
okay.
In the Tornado. These are the unicorns, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. They got demand, brand name, product awareness, leadership, and the deals go through.
Right.
If you're not in there, they don't go through.
Right. They get blown out of the water, right?
So you can have the most beautiful cadence in the world, and it doesn't really do anything for you other than annoy the client.
Yeah, yeah, it's so funny you say that. So yeah, there's a couple of guys. So the two guys. So when I got into sales, I was a little bit older. But the two guys who had done it that really helped me understand, at least got me off on a start. Well, let me say this too, by the way. Have you watched Queen's Gambit?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. My wife and I just watched the last episode last night, and I won't say I had an emotional reaction to it, but I had a personal reaction to it. And because I've often said that in my life, I had no idea what I was doing, but somehow people came into my life that were, that person that got me to the next step and were the model that I was drawn to. And like Chris Freight comes to mind. He was the first guy I met when I got my first sales job, and he'd been doing it for a while. And he said, this isn't, I was new to sales. I was 30 years old. And I had no idea what I was doing. And he said, it's not as hard as you think it is. He was the guy, you just got to have conversations. Don't look at this. Don't look at, I was in pharma at the time. These doctors aren't marks. They're not targets. They're people, right? Right? You know what I mean? And you go through sales training, it's like, hey, you got to hit them this many times and blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, I won't mention any names, but one company decided, hey, it's a good idea to have 7 reps selling the same medicines to these doctors, calling on it, right? So again, trying to assembly line all this, right? So anyway, the point being, Chris and another mentor, God rest his soul, Tom Gavin, they were the ones who really helped me understand that, sales wasn't what everybody on the outside thinks it is. Because I was actually embarrassed to say I was going into sales because I had a preconception about what that meant, right? Yeah. But, when you really tie, and you talked about being competitive and how that is good. And you said, well, what if you're not competitive? Well, if you're not competitive, then you got to be mission based, right? You got to be some customer service oriented. And I think that's how I made my name early on, because I came from a customer service background, and I was like, I'm going to take really good care of people, and it worked, right? So anyway, I went off on a tangent there, but you have the right people that come into your lives that get you to that next level. And that's what I loved about the Queen's Gambit, right? She had every excuse to just check out of society, right? She by today's social standards, she had all the excuses for never being personally accountable for anything, right? With her family situation. But all these people came into her lives at their various places. And I love how they ended that. Like, all these people were part of her big win, right? And I think, again, we individually as salespeople, we got to take advantage of all the people who come in and out of our lives and really take those lessons and accept that feedback from them, right? I'll stop there. I kind of went off on a little spiritual.
Well, that's it, because, you look at chess as a complex game. Now compare that to sales with people.
Right.
It's exponentially more complex.
Right. Because now you're adding, it's not objective. Now you're adding emotions, right?
Motive, time, politics.
Yeah.
You have all these events going on simultaneous that you're blind to. Right.
Exactly right. Yeah. And how are you going to navigate all that? And again, going back to, Chris and Tom, like, just ask the question. You're not going to insult anybody, right? They'll appreciate you that you're asking honest questions. Just be honest, be an authentic person, And and I think that's where, again, kind of going back to the original point, was systemically, that's where we should be focusing our training, is how do we enable these conversations, not more process, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
Hey, Ron, this has been a fun conversation. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Yeah, Ron McBride on LinkedIn. I don't have a lot else out there. Busy guy, but Brian, I really appreciated the chance to talk with you. This is awesome.